I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. My guest today on Beyond the Culture is Reginald Gant. Reggie is a man of many dreams who is out to serve the masses. He is a four-time author and founder of Serve4Men and the Serve Principles, which is a personal development vehicle used to educate men, fathers, and husbands. Reggie's motto is equipping men to lead, protect, and provide God's way. Reggie serves through offering leadership and coaching programs. Reggie is a human resource expert and business owner. And this is the part I really love. It says that he is a devoted father, I should say a devoted husband, and the father of 5. My goodness. But that's a great thing. Amen. So I'm just super excited today to have on Beyond the Culture, my guest, Mr. Reggie Gant. Reggie, thanks for being on the show today.
Dr. Walker, it's my pleasure and my honor to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have an outstanding conversation. And I'm glad you're on because we're going to have a conversation about men, dealing with men. And I believe that that's right where you are. Because as I was doing my homework and my research, I found that you have a passion for men. So I want to start with why the focus on men. And of course, you being a man and being a male, that's probably easy a question to answer, but I think it's a little bit deeper for you. So tell us why men, why have you focused on men? Did it have anything to do with your background, where you came from? I know you're from Baltimore, but just tell us why the passion for men.
That's such a great question. And I'll be honest. So it started for me, it probably can go back to childhood. My parents were married when I was born, but then shortly thereafter, in my early ages of life, they got divorced. So I was primarily raised in a single parent household. It was just mom and I, and I saw my dad on the weekends, the every other weekend thing. You know how that kind of goes. So I kind of grew up, missing that relationship that I had, with my dad. I wanted, what I saw some of my friends had, with their dads. But in 2009, Dr. Walker, God began to whisper into my ear, and he began to tell me that I would be a leader of leaders and that I would be a leader of men. And I'll be honest with you, Dr. Walker, in 2009, I was barely leading myself. A good buddy of mine, a good buddy of ours, actually, Brian Oles,
Okay.
he likes to joke around and say that he could barely lead 2 people in silent prayer, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard
And
him
I
say
love
that.
that joke. I love that joke because I resonate with that. Like in 2009, I was not leading anybody.
My.
But God began to whisper into my ears and he began to tell me that that's what I would be. I would lead leaders and then I would lead men. I didn't believe him. And then he began to speak to me in dreams and I began to write these things down. And I just remember a decade later in 2019, as my wife and I was just sitting around watching TV, the revelation hit. It was clear as day. God was like, look, here we are a decade later. Look at you now, leading leaders and leading men. As I serve as the men's ministry leader at our church,
Okay.
here in Baltimore, Maryland. And my wife and I, we lead in business and I have coaching programs and I lead in the community. And it's just like, wow, like God, once he starts to talk to you and reveal to you the things that he can do, I mean, it just blows your mind. So God laid that on my heart. I'm all about manhood and fatherhood and men being men. And honestly, Dr. Walker, I feel like a lot of the problems that we have in society is because men aren't present. They aren't active and they aren't doing things, the way that God has ordained us to do.
You know, um, that's touching, what you said, especially about growing up. I think you said you saw your dad on the weekends. Is that what you said?
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's just kind of unpack that a little bit. Um, we have so many young men who grow up in single parent households, and that's your experience. So just go a little bit deeper in the experience of you know basically having a weekend dad, and that's how you connected with him. Just talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So, my dad is an amazing guy. And actually it's crazy because right now, at this point in my life, we're best friends. I didn't have the ideal relationship that I wanted to have with him growing up, but now as a grown man, I mean, he's my everything. So much so that he actually lives on the next street over. I can walk to his house, right? So over the years, we had to build that relationship. But growing up as a child, especially as a late late to early teen,
Okay.
there were moments in life where I feel like I could have made better decisions. I could have made better choices, if I had a dad that was present, and it's something because now that my wife and I are married, and as you read in the bio, we have 5 children. It's something about the magic of having two parents present that
Mm.
really shapes the child.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a blended family, by the way. So
Okay.
our oldest is Diamond, and I was a teenage dad when I had Diamond.
Okay.
Diamond will be 21 this year. And then we have 4 boys. My wife had a child coming into the marriage. And then since then, we've had 3 additional boys. So we have 4 boys in the house right now, all under the age of 10. And we just noticed that the connection that's needed from father to children and mother to children are both pivotal in the child shaping in their upbringing. My mom did an amazing job raising me. I've never been to jail. I've never really gotten in trouble. I did become a teenage father by everyone's surprise, but hey, life didn't end there.
Right.
But my mom could not teach me manhood. She couldn't teach me fatherhood. And I grew up watching examples, of others around me. And I always said to myself, when I get to the age where, I get married and I become a father, that it's going to be one time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to break some generational curses. And my wife, she had the same belief on her end as well. And that's what we do. We pride ourselves in just, breaking all kinds of generational curses that came before us. Because, in our communities, there are a lot of single parent households,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just trying to use our voices and our influence, to reshape, what marriage looks like and what the Black family looks like.
When you said your mom, I don't know whether you used the word couldn't or didn't, but she couldn't teach you how to be a man. I believe you might have said it that way. Um, as I was reading, I found that your purpose is to assist men in finding their way.
Mhm.
And then here's what I also read. It says, because there's no manual or guide for manhood
Yeah, yeah.
or fatherhood. So, what did you mean by that? There's no manual or guide for fatherhood and manhood.
Well, Dr. Walker, you and I are very similar, right? So
Mm.
we all know that the 2 hardest jobs that we'll ever hold in life aren't our jobs, right? It's
Yeah,
not our 9 to 5. It's being a husband and it's being a father.
that's right.
Those things you cannot read in the book. Those things are trial by fire. You will fail your way forward many times. You will make a lot of mistakes, but there will be a lot of great moments. So what I love to do is I love to glean information, right, from from older individuals, right?
Okay.
Because the Bible says when hang around wise men, you become wise.
Right, right.
So anytime that I can glean information, wisdom, especially from a man, who's a established father, he's been married 30, 40, 50, 60 years or beyond, I'm taking in all of that information because what I want to do ultimately is I want that experience. But not only do I want that, I want everybody around me to have that experience as well, which is kind of what began the birth of my organization, Serve4Men, that started as a men's meetup group,
Okay.
because we know that men don't really have an outlet when it comes to expressing themselves, right? We will hold things in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Women flock together when there's challenges and circumstances, right? They come together, they have girls' night, they talk. But men, what do? We isolate ourselves. So, right, men find safety in being alone,
Right.
right? But there is really no safety in being alone because, right, you need wise counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized being a father, being a husband, is that I need to be around as many wise men as possible, and I need to make sure that I'm encouraging my brothers and my fathers and my fellow husbands out there to do the same, right? Because we can be Superman all day long, but every now and again we have to be Clark Kent, right? We have to take the cape off because we're still real men, and we need to let our families see that we can be Superman, but we can also be Clark Kent and be vulnerable and be a real person as well.
I love the part about when you say that it is difficult being a husband and a father, and of course I'm appreciative of my own personal experience. being married for 38 years.
Love it.
Yeah, and have two adult children in their mid 30s. And now I done moved to grandparent stage. Got a
Wow.
little couple of grandbabies. So, we've hung in there, and life is rewarding, and I thank God for it. And but you also talked about that, you know, God gave you, and I read this in your bio, how God gave you this acronym called serve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell what the acronym is, and then I want you to talk about that inspiration or that vision that God gave you about this word, because I notice, and we'll go over some of the names of your books a little later. I see that word in just about every one of the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see that that's something that God gave you, and the word serve is an acronym that says seek excellence, respect, value every day. God gave you that. Talk about that experience.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, right around 2009, again, when God began to speak to me, telling me that I would be a leader of leaders and leader of men, I remember shortly thereafter, I had another dream, and I woke up, and the word serve was impressed upon me. And I didn't know what it meant, but I wrote it down. And then as I was reading scripture and meditating one day, I believe it's in Mark chapter 10, somewhere along those lines, it says that the greatest among you will serve, right? The greatest
Mm,
among you will be servants.
that's right.
And for anybody who knows me, I really pride myself and, working hard. And I always wanted to make an impact in this world, right? I want to be the great. When I die, and prayerfully that's no time soon, I want this world to know that Reginald Gant was here, that I existed, that I mattered, right? That I made impact. So over the years, serve, it started off as one acronym, but it's now spun off into three different ones. But that original one, seek excellence, respect, value every day, right? That's how I live my life.
Mm,
So it's a principle, and this is what we drive into our children as well. Every day that you wake up, right, you should strive for excellence. If you're going to do anything, if you're going to put your name on something, if you're going to be attached to something, you might as well do it in an excellent manner, or don't even waste your time doing it at all, right? So every day that we wake up, seek excellence, chase after excellence, right? Being average is not good enough. Sometimes being good is not good enough, right? You can
mm,
be great, right? And that's the premise of my first book, serve yourself to greatness. Greatness is attainable to those who have, the willingness to be excellent in all that they do. Then that R stands for respect. So every day that we wake up, right, it's a brand new gift. It's a brand new day. God has graced us with another chance, not only to serve Him, right, but to respect the time and talents and gifts and resources that He has given us to
mm-hmm.
make this world a better place, right? So you give respect on that day, you receive respect. But what we do more than anything is that we respect God enough for waking us up that day by not wasting it, right?
Right, right.
Sitting in front of the TV, flicking the remote control all day long, just being idle, just cruising through life. No, that's not what God has called us to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every day that you wake up, seek excellence, right? Seek respect. And then that V is value, right? One of the things that I've really lived my life by, things and people should be better after an encounter with you. Like I feel like after you and I had exchanged information, out the walk of my life was already better, right? And that's something that we definitely impress upon our boys. Things and people should always be better after an encounter with you, and that's the value that you bring to this world. So every day that you wake up, right, seek excellence, respect, value. That's a way of life. That's a mantra. So in our household, that's one of the principles that we live by.
How do you make the lives of other people better? You serve them.
Serve.
You serve.
You serve them.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, that was so powerful. And yes, lives should be different after having an encounter with you. So if you're listening to me, and no one's life is being changed by having an encounter with you, it's probably because you're not serving.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I love about serving is that it's so powerful, right? Because I mean, the world's aspect, when you're great, it's
Mm-hmm.
about how many people are serving you. But that's not how it works in the kingdom of God. And I don't want the world's greatness, right? I
Right.
want what my Father has promised me. God says that the greatest among you will serve. And what I've noticed in my life, when there have been lean moments, challenging times, difficult seasons, because we all have them, right? No one's immune to the trials and tribulations of life. But when you serve, Dr. Walker, when you take the attention off of yourself and you place it on someone else, not only do you change their life,
Mm-hmm.
It transforms you from the inside out as well. I mean, why do you think we have so many people that are so passionate about all of these different movements, right? The movement to stop homelessness, the movement to stop fatherlessness, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are built for service. God has placed something inside of each and every one of us. We have a desire to serve,
That's right.
right? So when you take that time and you pour that energy into somebody else, it makes them better. It makes you better.
Give me a time where you could give me a story, a time when you use your acronym serve in helping to impact the lives of men.
Absolutely. So I remember specifically there was at one of my men's meetups.
Okay.
And we used to do these in person. Obviously, this was pre-COVID. I really miss those days, by the way. It's nothing like fellowship of like minds.
Yes.
But there was a man who was struggling with his next move in life.
Okay.
Right. So we began to engage one on one. I have a coaching program, it was called, Serve Yourself to Greatness. That's actually the name of the book and the coaching program. So we began to run through a series of exercises and activities, and I began to get him to open up to, affirmation. So affirming yourself. The Bible says again, as a man think of in his heart, what? So is he. Right. So I'm an avid believer on what we think and what we feel is what we become. So because I noticed that a lot of the words that came out of his mouth were negative, a lot of the thoughts and feelings that he expressed were negative, we kind of had to first work there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bible also says that, whatever things are excellent and noble and true and worthy and all of those things, right? Think upon these things. And we all know that, whatever we think about, we attract. So
Right.
he was attracting nothing but negativity because that's all that he was talking. That's all that he was thinking about. So we began to work there on his mindset. And after we began to get his mindset in order, he began to feel a little bit more upbeat. But then he began to tell me that he was, a little bit stuck in his career,
Mm-hmm.
and he was really fearful on making the next move. He knew that where he was a dead end, but that's where he was for the last 15 plus years. But he knew that if he took a chance on himself, to step outside of his comfort zone, that life could be better. So we began to, again, take the serve principles. I told him how to be excellent. I told him about respecting his day. I had him write down things that will really make him happy. Like if money wasn't an issue,
Mm-hmm.
what would you be doing?
Right.
And then
Right.
we began to take a look at that list, and we began to figure out, well, what can you start to do now, like in your spare time? So in your evening hours, on your weekends, that would bring a little bit more happiness. And then eventually we would just work all the way up through to the point where he said, you know what, I'm ready to jump. He left one job. It was a state job. It was secure. It had benefits, the whole 9 yards. And he went into a completely different field. But he went in with the mindset that, now with God, all things are possible. And he didn't
Right.
have that at first. So he took the serve principles. He made that leap. And Dr. Walker, I'll be proud to say the man has doubled his income.
Wow.
So he was stuck and he was complacent and he was negative when we first started.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's doubled his income. He's happy. I seen him not too long ago. The brother looked like he could play for the Baltimore Ravens, because now he's actually working out and he's helping other people to do the same. And it's just a blessing when you can see God working not only in you but through you to other people. And I'm blessed to have, all kinds of testimonies like that over the years.
When you were talking, you used a couple of words. One, you said negative, that he had some negative thinking,
Mm-hmm,
and then you used the word mindset.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I find that obviously it's how you think. It's
mm-hmm,
how what's your mindset, especially being a father and a dad.
mm-hmm.
And if I could just go back to your relationship with your father, and some people take the negative experiences in our lives and they foster them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, my dad wasn't in my life, so I'm not going to be in the lives of my kids. My father was abusive to my mother, so I'm going to be abusive. Instead of changing the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I hear that you've done. Your family man, been married many years, you have children, so you've kind of changed and turned the narrative around. And so let me ask this question, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who believe in the myth that Black men can't be great dads and can't be great fathers. Would you just speak to that a little bit? That
Yes,
and just
absolutely.
debunk that myth.
Absolutely incorrect. I'm not gonna lie to you, Dr. Walker. I don't hang around anything but amazing Black dads,
I
right?
hear you. I
And we
hear you.
overcome all odds. But to rewind, right? So my dad and I, um, let me tell you, and this is gonna free somebody up, right?
Okay.
What really transpired between my father and eventually in my mid 20s was a face-to-face conversation, and I sat down and I laid it all out on the line about how I felt. I'm crying, I'm fussing, I'm yelling, the whole 9 yards. Then I gave my dad, the opportunity to share his end. But Dr. Walker, what really freed me up was forgiveness.
Mm.
And I really realized in that moment, I mean, as I'm sobbing as a grown man, crying to my
Sure.
dad about how I needed you. I really wanted you there. How could I go through all of my life, and only see you every now and again, blah, blah, blah. But God laid on me the power of forgiveness. And what I really love about forgiveness is that it's not for it's something that just frees you up. I
Mm.
mean, like when I took that weight off of my shoulders, right, of how I felt towards my dad and my parents being divorced, and I the playing the victim role that I kind of felt growing up a little bit, I felt so much lighter, right?
Yes.
I was able to love my dad in a way that I've never loved him before. I was able to love my mom in a way that I never loved her before. And what I really realized is that there's power in forgiveness. But forgiveness is for you,
That's
right?
right.
Because
Yeah.
that other person has probably moved on about their life. They're not worried about it. You're sitting around carrying around baggage.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that was over 20 plus years of baggage.
Wow.
And in that moment when I was like, you know what, Dad, I forgive you. The first person not the walker that I forgave was myself.
That's right.
I was disappointed in myself for allowing myself to carry around so much negativity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then when I realized that forgiveness, actually freed me up, it changed my mindset. It allowed my dad and I to have a deeper relationship. Like I said, so much so to the point now we're best friends.
Mm.
Like that's my guy.
That's right.
And now he's a part of our sons. I got 4 boys at home. I can't imagine my dad not being a part of their lives, because ideally he wasn't a part of my life the way that I wanted, right? So now we got a chance to work on that. And this is something new for him,
Mm-hmm.
because my dad, he grew up, with some stories about his dad, some challenges, so
Sure.
that power of forgiveness allowed us to bridge our challenges, but now it's allowing my dad to be a grandfather, right? Which is something that he didn't get a chance to experience as a
Right.
kid growing up, right? So when I'm all about breaking generational curses, I'm all about, doing things God's way. And not to say that people won't mess up, but they do, right?
Sure.
We forgive, we work through it, right? We communicate and we come together. And that's what men should be doing collectively. Men should be pulling each other up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like we live in a world right now where everybody is, especially us as Black men, everybody is trying to tear us down.
You know, I love the part where you said forgiveness is not necessarily for the person who did the wrong, but it's primarily for you to get you into a better place and to have a better accepting of the things that happen to you in life. And if I can, I just want to share somewhat of a similar story, but even though I don't necessarily label it as forgiveness, but it kind of land there just the same. I did grow up in a two-parent household, but there were some challenges between my dad and I.
Mm.
And I remember, and I didn't get this until I was a grown man. And you've heard of the saying that Oprah Winfrey says, or Maya Angelou, I think, is the one who actually says it. When someone shows you who they are, believe them
Yeah.
the first time. And I'll never forget when someone shared that with me. What I discovered in the relationship with my father was that I always had this expectation for him to change and to be different.
Mm.
And there were moments where you might have started to get a little glimpse of a change, and then he kind of go back, and it would keep frustrating me. Can't you see? Can't you be different? Can't you see what you're doing and all those kinds of things? But one day that saying grabbed me on the inside that said, when a person shows you who they are, believe it.
Mm.
And that day,
Yeah.
I realized that I wanted a person to be different, and I wasn't believing who they were. And the moment I began to believe that this is who this person is, and they're not going to be different tomorrow,
Mm.
and the moment you accept that,
Mm.
the moment you lower your expectation for a change. And of course, I'm not talking about something violent and
Yeah.
anything like that, but I'm just talking about people's character, the way they see things or do things. Sometimes you have to lower your expectation for that person to be different tomorrow.
Yeah.
And once I realized, wait a minute, this person has been showing me who he is for the past, I might have been in my 40s at the time, for the past 40 years. And I'm expecting him to be different tomorrow. And when tomorrow gets here, he's the same way. But when I realized that that's who he is, our relationship changed because I was the one that made the change.
Yeah.
I became accepting of, the relationship between the two of us. And from that day on until he passed, we had a great relationship. Things were so much better because I said, whenever I saw it again, I said, that's who he is.
Dr. Walker, you said something that was so powerful, and I just had to piggyback on that, right? So
Sure.
that word expectations
Mm-hmm.
is powerful, right? Because we walk around with these silent expectations, not only of ourselves, right, but of others as well. My wife and I learned something that was so pivotal to our relationship and our marriage and premarital counseling that I just wanted to share because you said that powerful word expectations, right? And I know that we all walk around with silent expectations, not only of ourselves, but of others. And what we really learned about that freed us up a long time ago, Dr. Walker, is that expectations that are not mutually agreed upon are invalid.
Mm.
So, what does that mean? That means two people need to come together in agreement of this expectation
Right.
in order for it to be valid. So, if that means that if I'm walking around with an expectation of my wife that she has not agreed upon,
Right.
null and void. But when the
Exactly.
two parties come together, expectations that are mutually agreed upon are valid and acceptable. So I love what you did in that instance, right? Because you realized that, hey, this wasn't a mutually agreeable upon expectation. So let me take a step back. And when you did that, you saw things got better. And it's just expectations are something that we really need to talk about a little bit more, as adults as well, especially for those of us that are men, that are fathers, that are husbands, because we all have them, but if we're not sharing them, if we're not in agreement with others, then, those expectations will only cause us frustration later on in life.
I totally agree. I totally agree with exactly what you said about expectations. Let me move to something else that I want to talk about with you. Now, you're a businessman,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the fact that not only are you a great dad, a great husband, but you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, you're out there again serving the community.
Mm-hmm.
And you have several businesses, and you can talk about any one of them, but I see you provide legal services, estate planning, some identity theft protection, and other uh, businesses where you serve God, you serve the community. I see something else about human resources and consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of talk about whichever one of the businesses you want to speak to that you think that would be good for us to hear about.
Well, I'll just tie it all in under my umbrella. So, Serve4Men, right?
Okay.
LLC. The whole premise of that organization is for me to equip men and fathers and husbands to lead and to protect and to provide and to serve God's way. Now, we all know as men, right? We will physically protect our family by any means necessary, right? So that goes without saying.
Hmm.
But I'm talking about a different kind of protection, So when I'm talking about leading and protecting and providing, I'm talking about doing it God's way. So God says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren, in essence,
Hmm.
right? How can I leave an inheritance for my grandchildren if I'm not actually out here that's doing something that's going to create some kind of wealth?
Right.
Yeah, a 9 to 5 is nice, a job pays the bills and things of that nature, but we can't really pass our job on to our children. So one of the things that I realized earlier in life was that, in order for my wife and I to achieve the wealth that we wanted, that we would have to not only have, one business, but, maybe several, and then several different streams of income.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I pride myself in doing when I sit down and I talk with men and fathers and husbands is that I help them to actually get their wills done in their estate plans. Now, in the Black community, what I've come to realize is that 9 out of 10 of our families don't have a will. In
Mm.
They don't have estate plans. Nationwide, on average, 7 out of 10 Americans don't, right? But it's a lot higher always in the minority community. So when I was educated a few years back and I realized the importance of getting one, it changed my life and it changed my mindset. And I was the first person in my family, to my knowledge, Dr. Walker, to get a will.
Mm.
And who introduced it to me? Actually, I'll be honest with you, my wife at the time. She, we weren't married, but we were dating, and she asked me, she was like, "Hey, I see you doing well for yourself. You have your job, you got a business on the side, you have a beautiful daughter. Do you have a will in place?" And I kind of laughed and I chuckled. I was
Hmm.
like, "Well, I'm only like 28, 29 years old at the time." I was thinking wills were for old people.
Right, right.
She said, "Do you realize that if something was to happen to you today, that a will is literally the only thing that would dictate where your daughter goes safely?" She was like, "If you can protect her in the will, or you can leave it up to the state of Maryland to decide what would happen to your baby girl." And then I was like, "Huh, share more." So she shared more, and then she shared the cost, and I realized that literally, for pizza money, you know, I could get a will, I could get estate plans, I can get my medical directors, and I can get access to legal services. And it wasn't expensive, it wasn't breaking the bank, and it was something that was very well affordable. And I said to myself, well, if I need it and I can afford it, I know everybody else in my family needs it and can afford it as well. So I shared it with my parents. Then my parents began to share it with their siblings and aunties and uncles and cousins. And I'm just huge about men doing it the right way, right? So after the wills, I started to look into life insurance, right? Because again, I want to make sure that I'm creating a legacy. So I'm
Hmm.
talking about protection. I'm not talking about you physically come into my house, that kind of protection. I'm talking about the kind of protection that we also need on a day-to-day basis, right? If something was to happen to us, I want to be able to pick up the phone and find out what my rights are. So now my family has that protection. We have that peace of mind. If God was decided that He wanted to bring me home early, right? We have life insurance, right? My family's protected that way. But I'm also talking about spiritual protection, right? So I've written several books of affirmations, not only for men but also for teenagers, as well as for those who have small children, because we do. And obviously our daughter, she's progressed past the teenage years. Now she's 20, 21 almost,
Hmm.
right? So I'm talking about protecting your family spiritually. So I'm all about leading and protecting and providing God's way. Men should be leading worship and praise in their homes. Men should be leading, in their places of worship, right? I mean, we see a lot of times when we go to church and in our church communities that you have a lot of women everywhere, right? But I
Right.
feel that men were called to leadership. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where a lot of men are very passive. And I'm all about men leading courageously, men rejecting passivity, right? I'm all about that. And that's what David did, right? I'm not sorry, David, Adam. That's what Adam did in the Garden of Eden. He was passive. When
Right.
Eve wanted to take a bite, he was passive and he allowed that to happen. And that's where the fall of man started. So I'm all about being an authentic man, but doing it God's way. God has called us to lead and to protect and to provide our families in. And I'm just going to continue to use my voice because I honestly feel that when men, Dr. Walker, get into their rightful positions, into their rightful places, when men are walking in their rightful purposes, I'm a I'm an avid believer that everything around them changes. You see the difference when you step into a household and there's a man present versus when there's a man not present. You see the difference when a man walks into a room, right? It's a different level of respect and authority. And I'm just, I need more men to be who God has called them to be. And I won't stop, until we get it.
You know, you're so right about the position that men should take, and I love what you said that too many men are passive. You know, there's one thing. about passing the baton,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
there's another thing about passing responsibility on to somebody else, you know.
absolutely, absolutely.
you know. Um, and if I could just go back to what you said about wills, having a will, um, you know, even some of the most wealthiest of Black people miss it.
Yeah,
We heard of the Aretha Franklins,
Prince.
who well, I think valued over $300 million and died with
Mhm.
no will, and
Yeah,
now the state is
fighting.
handling her money.
Yeah,
Family's not in control of it anymore.
yeah,
Prince died with no will.
yeah.
State has to take over. So it's something that is so valuable, and I'm glad that's something that you're doing. What would you change about the mindset of men in anything that you said? What would you change in terms of you see this as a mindset? And if you could just change that particular thing, what would that be?
I want men to, if I could really impress anything upon men, Dr. Walker, I want men to believe that they are the kings
Okay.
that God has created them to be, right? And in order for us to be kings, we have to take control of our minds, and we have to begin to have kingly thoughts,
Mm,
right? We have to begin to hang around and associate with other kings. You don't see kings running around in the streets with peasants, right?
that's right.
You see
Exactly.
kings in the presence of other royalty. So when we begin to put on the mindset, you know what, my dad was a king, therefore I'm a king, then you want to act like a king, right? And you want to be treated as such. But we live in a world right now where, I mean, culture is, it's really, it tears the man apart. It tears the Black man extremely apart, right? So I want men to believe that they are the kings that God has created them to be. And, and when my voice finally opened up and I really realized who I was and whose I was, for me, it was a game changer because I grew up with low self-esteem, Dr. Walker. The man that you see now at age 40, I mean, when I was a teenager, even into my 20s, like I was meek, I wanted to be behind the scenes. But somewhere along the line, God has said, look, I've given you a voice,
Wow.
and you need to use it. And you're gonna use it for my glory and for my benefit. And I stepped into that, and I was afraid. And sometimes I still do things afraid, right? But I want to
Sure.
show my children that you can be afraid and successful at the same time.
Reggie, I mean, that's so powerful. The mindset of a king. And king don't hang out with peasants; they hang out with other royalty.
I'm the royalty.
That's great. Reggie, I am just so excited about this time that we spent together. Before I talk about your books, is there any last question that maybe I should have asked you that you may want to say, Dr. Walker? If you had asked me this, I would have answered this way, or something else that you want to say?
Yeah. So let me break down this serve acronym. So again, I told you it started off one way, right?
Okay, okay.
That was the seek excellence, respect, value every day. But since then, it's metamorphosized into two other, acronyms, and I want you to catch these, right? So when I talk to men, especially men of faith,
Mm-hmm.
men who believe in God, the this serve stands for spiritual excellence, reproduces value everywhere. And what I mean by that is that when a man is excellent in his spirit, when his spirit is right, right? And that means that he's walking in tune with the Holy Spirit. He's one. Him and the Holy Spirit are one, right? Spiritual excellence reproduces value everywhere. Everywhere that man goes, whatever that man puts his hand to, it will prosper, right? When the man is spiritually excellent. So spiritual excellence reproduces value everywhere. That's the serve acronym number two. And then the serve acronym number three, once I began to step into the role of motivational speaker a few years ago, when I decided that I wanted to take my speaking game up to the next level. This last acronym, the S stands for speak it. So we speak those things that are not as
Mm,
if they were,
mm-hmm.
right? Then the E stands for expect it. So after we speak those things that are not as if they were, expect God to show up, right?
Yes.
And then after expectation comes receive. The R stands for receive. So we speak those things, we expect those things, and then what? God is going to provide. Then we receive those things. Then the V stands for value again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after we spoke it, after we expected it, after we received it, value whatever it is that God has just placed in your lap, right? And then that last E is our job to make sure that we turn around and to empower someone else to do the same. So we speak it, we expect it, we receive it. Once we get it, we value it, and then we're mandated, we're obligated. It's our responsibility to turn around and empower other people to do the same thing. And I really feel like the greatest among us will serve if we walk by those kinds of principles, Dr. Walker.
So, Reginald Gant is the author of Serve Yourself to Greatness, Your Greatness Unleashed,
Mhm.
Serve Your Children to Greatness,
Mhm.
Serve Your Team to Greatness,
Yeah.
and Speak Up, the ultimate guide to dominate in the speaking industry. So, those are the books that my friend Gant has authored. And so, Reg, give us your social media and your contact information so my audience could reach out to you if they want to connect with you.
Absolutely. So on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's just my name is Reginald Gant, Gant. And on Instagram, it's at Reggie Serves. So that's ReggieServes. But Facebook and LinkedIn is very simple. It's just my name is Reginald Gant. I'm not hard to find.
Well, Reggie, this was an outstanding conversation, and I really appreciate you for being on the show today. You have truly inspired us, you've uplifted us, you've encouraged us, and you spoke a word to men, uh, teaching and telling them that, that they are great. They're great, but you have to serve. Let him who serves be the greatest among you. And I believe Jesus also said that if you want to be first in the kingdom, then you got to serve.
Yes, sir.
So, as I say to all of my guests that come on the show, you have gone beyond the culture. And I thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, Reggie, you take care. Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, please go to our website at www.beyondtheculturepodcast.com, or you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. On the website, you can subscribe to the show and connect with me by leaving your email address. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.